Good evening, everyone, and welcome to BT's Fly Tying Friday. Tonight, the 10th of October, we'll be working on some divided wing parachutes. Not something that you always see. I don't mean you never see them, but it's not a real common thing. And the weekly tip, well, the wing stabilizer is going to go to Plan B. I want to thank you for joining us. If you recall, last week, we tied flies with a full standard tied parachute, meaning it went up and down the post. We started tying at the top of the post and went clear to the body. And the one on the left is an example of what we did last week, which was the British method, and that's what I call it. I learned it from a guy called Nigel Rodger in the UK. And basically, it's the same number of turns of hackle placed closer to the hook shank than the ones on the right. The left is the British style. The one on the right is the way it's normally done here in the US. Now tonight, we're going to take a look at tying divided wing flies with a parachute hackle on them. And of course, that's not a full fly there. That's just like the others. It's an example of what we're going to be doing. And let's get into the recipe. And if you didn't figure it out last week, the recipe was almost zero. It was an open-ended deal. You could do just about whatever you wanted. And it's the same thing tonight. Dry fly hook, whatever dubbing you want. If you want a rib, have it. The wing stabilizer is going to be bent monofilament. We're going to bend it just a little different than we did before. And the wing is going to be feather or whatever material you want, but I'm going to be using feathers tonight. In fact, I've got a surprise for you just a little bit later. And dubbing, color of choice, hackle. I like grizzly, so that's what I've got here. And thread. I have a pretty simple selection of materials. And in fact, what I'm going to start out with tonight is some Cocktailion for my tail material. I'll just move that over to the vise. And here I've already pre-selected a couple of hackle feathers. I'll put them over here. And I'll grab my thread. I guess that'll be it for the moment. Okay, now I wanted to show you the tail material. Isn't that gorgeous stuff? Oh my God. Well, this is the wing material is from a hen of the same thing, Cocktailion hen. And that sure makes a beautiful wing. Oh my goodness. Anyway, that's what we'll be using tonight. Now I'm going to start by laying down my thread, starting about 1/3 back from the hook eye, just a little bit forward of that. And I'm going to wrap part of the way to the end of the hook and stop. And that's because the first thing I'm going to do is tie on my tail. And the way we do tails is this type of tail, which is a hackle barb tail. It's a very, very dense material, even though it's lightweight, and it doesn't have a lot of compression. And therefore, we really like to attach it right to a bare hook so that we can get it to pointing the direction that we want, and we don't want any unwanted turns of thread messing up. Now I get those all lined up. You notice how I kind of had to loop them around here a little bit to get them to line up? Because if I pull them just straight and you yank them off, you end up with a tail that looks like, just a minute here. You see how there's some of them are shorter and longer than the others? So what I do is I stroke them out and get them lined up so that the tips are lined up. Now I'll hold them as tight as I can and just pull the feather away. Set that aside. Measure my tail for length. And I want the tail to be just about as long as the complete hook. Find that in place. Alrighty, there we go. And I'll trim that off. Now I'm going to reach over here to the materials area. And I've already got it set up, but I've got a big spool of monofilament here. And what you can't see is that the monofilament comes all the way over here to the tying vise. And I'll just bring this forward onto the hook and just bind it in place there in what I call the wing position. There we go, got it finally. Now let me trim that at an angle. And what's different, you notice that this is different than what we did before. This is straight off of the spool of mono, where last week we pre-made our stabilizers. And I've still got some of those. In fact, I'm going to use them next week. But this week with the divided wings and just a single parachute, or just a parachute hackle, this should work out okay. Now what I want to do is see if you can see that. Yeah, you'll be able to see it. I'm going to put a little knob on the end there, just so it doesn't slip for me. And now what I want to do is I got a bodkin here, and I'm going to heat that bodkin a little bit. See if I can get it so I don't burn up anything, but you can still see what I'm doing. There we go. I'm kind of behind the... All right, now that should be warm. I'll bring that up at an angle. I better warm that up some more. I was trying to work around the camera there, and I think I'll just go to the offside of the camera to get that monofilament straightened up. There we go. That's just what I was looking for. Now I'll put
So what did you do?
Well, I heated the bodkin and warmed the
To what purpose?
so it would turn it at a 90-degree angle, because it's going to be directly between the wings. And that's going to be a wing support downstream. Right now it's just in my way.
So
But
you were in it at a 90-degree angle. That's what that was about.
that's correct, yes. Which is what we did last week, but we made the 90-degree angle by bending it over a knife. Now, let me get my wing materials out here. 2 feathers up here. Let's take a moment though and go back to this camera, because I just wanted to show you what a gorgeous cape that cocktail hen is. In fact, let me go to the
materials.
Yeah, to the materials.
That's better.
That is just gorgeous for a whole lot of things, but I really love it for the wings that I'm going to be doing here. Anyway,
And that's the hen cape there.
Yeah, it's a hen cape, cocktail hen. Anyhow, I pulled a couple of fairly matching feathers off of there. Make sure they're the same length. One of the things you have to really look for, let me see if I can turn it so you can see. Now those two, if you look at them, they look, one has got a little darker tip than the other. And if you just glance at them, you swear that this one is shorter than this one, but they're the same length. It's just you have to make sure you're looking at the absolute end fibers of everything. Now I'm going to go on either side of this support, measure for length, set it in place. Had a little slippage there. Let me get another grip on it. There we go. I got it that time. And let's trim off the waist. Now I'm going to trim it at a very severe angle so I can blend the waist from the wing into the waist from the tail, and I get a nice tapered body out of it. Now I want to make sure that when I stand it up that I get my post right in the center. All right, there we go. And it's sitting right in the center. And now, just like last week, what we do is we gather the wings at the base, but we don't wrap a post up. We up the wing. I'm just still going to do a couple of gathering wraps. And of course, that pulls those wings together, but that's all right. We'll take care of that. And now I've got a good gallows here to kind of hang on to when I wrap the hackle. So there's where we are at this point. If you have any questions, please feel free to call out. But I'm going back to the materials area now to grab a couple more items. And I'm getting the dubbing wax and the dubbing and slip them back over here to the tying area. Set that aside, get out my wax, and I'm going to wax that all along. All right, good. Now I'm going to, very important to put that lid back on before setting that down. I can't tell you how many times I've dropped that thing into the waste bin with the lid off, and that really makes a mess. All right. And we'll just twist in one direction only.
John Wright wants to know if coq de leon is a special kind of chicken or a special kind of hackle, and it's a fighting cock from Spain, is it?
Correct. Yeah, it's a fighting cock from Spain, and and they have a very definitively marked feather, as you can well see on both the hen and the rooster.
While Al was working at Whiting Farms when they ended up getting some coq de leon in, and they now raise it, and they're really vicious. The cocks are.
Those doggone just to tell you how cranky some of those darn roosters could be. We'd be out checking the chickens and getting an idea of what certain pens were doing and some of the experiments and that kind of stuff. And if there was a coq de leon in the rooster or in the house, and they got loose, they'd hunt you like a doggone tiger. And all of a sudden you'd hear a squawking and screaming, and from the back, always from the back, because they didn't attack you up front. They'd be coming at you with claws and beak. Nasty critters. You didn't sign in tonight to learn all that stuff, but
it's kind of interesting stuff though.
Anyhow.
They were bred to be that way.
Yep. Okay, now back over at the materials area. I am going to splurge tonight. My hackles, they're a lightly colored cree. So I'm just they're not a real dark cree, but that's probably why they didn't end up in the cree bin and got overlooked as grizzly. As an example, the feather, and I just put in the clip, it's grizzly on one side of the stem and cree on the other. So that's probably why that one didn't make it. Anyhow. Now I'm going to trim off some of this webby stuff. There we go. Now I'm going to trim a little bit more on the side of the stem that's going to go up against the post. Okay, well, I've tied down the hackle while dubbing in front, and I would have liked to have had it turn out to where I didn't have to add any more dubbing, but as it turns out, I've got to add some more dubbing. So I'll just do that. Don't need much though, just to kind of fill out the area there in the front of the hook.
Is that a natural color dubbing?
Yeah, it's
the tan.
It's actually it's gray.
Okay.
Let's get in closer here.
There we go. Thank you.
It's gray on our screen.
It's beautiful.
Okay, well, anyway, now comes the time, and remember last week where we normally tie our parachute hackle to the top of the post, like you see on the right-hand side here. And then you wrap down the post, and when you get to the body, you're done. Well, on this one, we're going to start wrapping at the bottom and make semi-open turns as we go up about 3 or 4 turns. Oh, come on, you. There we go. It's
A little more delicate when you don't wrap up the post, isn't it? With the
right.
thread?
And here we go. Now we're making our last turns. It looks like I'm going to get a total of 8 turns on that hook, and that's fine. That's just what I wanted. But you'll notice that they only cover a smaller area, but you still have the same flotation of the 8 turns of hackle. Now, I want to divide those wings, and I'm going to take one more turn to tie down that hackle, and then I'm going to do my half hitch and whip finish before I set the wings and establish the hackle positioning. Okay, there's a half hitch. Oops, missed. Okay, now the whip finish. Too much coffee tonight, I guess.
Not enough.
Okay, that's what it is. I had to laugh. I had a meeting with the doctor here a couple of weeks ago, and anyway, in the course of the conversation, she wanted to know how many cups of coffee I had a day, and I said, well, usually 6. And I thought she was going to fall off the chair. She said, that's a little bit much. I would suggest that at least through this process, you may want to cut that down a little bit. I said, oh, okay, well, whatever you want. That's fine.
We'll go to 5.5.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. And now we've got a parachute hackle with 8 turns of flotation, but it doesn't cover that amount of time or that amount of space. And it's actually wrapped just on the feather itself, not on any type of a post. Now, that could come apart. Well, that's why we come along here and trim out the support. And I'm not going to do it on camera, but I would normally put a drop of head cement right there, and that would set it up for me. But anyway, there's the a divided wing parachute. And
In the garbage bin.
in the garbage can it went. I'll see if I can find it, and you can come back to us here. And I'm going to be digging in the garbage can for a minute, folks.
You need an extension magnet. You can just
I've got one here, and I just need to
swirl it around. It'll anything magnetic will get it.
So Al, I have a question. This Chuck.
Yeah.
The post, the monofilament post.
Yep.
Is that just to reinforce the feathers so they don't smash together? Was that why it's there?
No, it's there. The only purpose it's there for, Chuck, is
To hold
to give temporary support to the hackle as you wrap it, because there's just no way in heck you're going to wrap a hackle onto 2 bare feathers sticking up there with no support of any type.
Okay, so just a reinforcement of the whole process. I thought perhaps it was actually holding the wings apart is part of why it was there.
It does a little bit, but that single strand of mono doesn't do too much. Now, next week, when we get into divided wings with a parachute on each wing, you'll be talking about a different deal. And of course, we'll use a different support system too. Any other
Very good.
questions?
It's a
Yeah,
beautiful
Al,
fly. Yeah.
what's the gauge on your monofilament there?
It's 6 pound.
Okay, thank you.
And I usually use 6 pound in sizes 14 and larger, and then when I go to 16 down to 20, I'll use 4 pound, and I haven't gone below 20, but it doesn't mean that I probably wouldn't have to go to something even smaller. Otherwise, it'll just be too heavy.
Neil wanted to know about your thread. What
Thread? The only thing I tie with in this whole world, 99% of the time, is Danville 3.0 or Danville 6.0, and this is 6.0. We don't have any other questions?
That's it.
No, you
Great.
did a good job.
Well, good. Now we're going to have the fun, because I've got to tell you a story, folks.
Here we go.
And it's mostly true. That's like what LaFontaine used to tell us. Now I got a story to tell you, and it's mostly true. So now I'll use a Garyism, if you will, and this is a mostly true story. What was I talking about? This is another problem when you're dealing with an old guy.
Well, you say we're going to have some fun, and
oh.
the next time you have a story to go with it.
Yeah. Well, anyhow, we learned about, it was about 93, right after we got married. It was 93 or 94. We went to a show in Europe together. It was one of the first shows that Gretchen and I went to together, and we met a couple of guys from Holland, and they wanted to show us their fly boxes. They were getting ready to go to Germany and go fishing, which it'd be kind of like for us to go to Montana to go fishing. It's a lot of good streams and stuff there. And they had a thing called wonder wing flies, and I had never seen those before. Just fell in love with the wonder wings. And you needed to have pretty good sized feathers to tie those. Well, I had been tying fly commercially for, I don't know, a whole lot of years by that time, 30 or more. And I had 867 capes with the feathers in it from size 10 to 18 gone, and all the big feathers still there. And I all of a sudden found a home for all those feathers that I had laying around forever. But it only took about 5 years, and I used them all up, because I tied a lot of wonder wings. Gretchen and I both did. And I have settled on saltwater capes is what I've been using to do my wonder wings, until an accident happened 2 weeks ago. I was messing around and accidentally dumped some feathers on the floor when I was looking for some feathers to do wonder wings, and this fell out. And I think most of you will recognize it. It's a ringneck pheasant body. I mean, anybody that buys a full skin like I do often to get the tail feathers, you end up with a whole bunch of this. And what do you do with it? Well, you're going to find out tonight. There are feathers on this that are absolutely phenomenal for wonder wings.
Feathers, yeah.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely love them. And we're going to use them tonight. So back at the vise, or maybe, yeah, back at the vise. Let me take this out, and we'll get a hook. All right, let's put our thread base in, and just like we did before, I'll just wrap back part way, and I'm going to go back and get my feather for the tail. And bring it right up here. And now I want you to notice I took the feathers, or the fibers, off of this side of the feather on the last fly. And I still have some fibers that you'll notice here, that these right in here are shorter than these right here. And I want to use them, but if I just pull them off, I'm going to end up with a tail that's not lined up. So I'm going to take and kind of pull those all back at an angle again like that, so I can line all those up like that.
Good job.
Well, sometimes you got to get lucky, Gretchen. And tonight has been a kind of steady by jerk sort of a presentation. So you got to get lucky once in a while. Anyhow, so I'm going to tie these on and make it about equal to the length of the complete hook. There we go. And you notice that I'm tying it to the bare hook shank. That's the way we always do it. I know other people do it different ways, and that's very definitely all right. I'm not saying what we do is right, wrong, or indifferent. It's just what we do.
What your problem is tonight.
What's that?
I let you get that camera, and all you've done this week is play with your camera.
Trying to figure out how to run this darn thing, and it's smarter than me, folks. That's the true story. It's smarter than me. Let's get over to the materials area, and I'll grab some feathers for their wings. Okay, and as you can see when I get back here to the vise, that it's that's the feathers right there. And I can't tell you how many times I've looked at these, and you know, like a lot of you, I would venture a guess that you got a lot more feathers than you got flies to put this church window thing on. But at least you're going to find another use for them now. And one of the things that I find so nice about these is they position better than a lot of the other hackle that I've used for them. So let me just pull this out for a bit. And you make them just the same identical way. Notice that I already got them cut off. I took all the fuzz away. And now I'm just going to take and sweep back fibers on a length of stem. And there's a formula to this. We compare this length of stem from here to here in relation to the hook shank. And I want that to be 1/2 the shank or less. And if I'm going to make a mistake, no more than 2/3. In fact, 2/3 is too much. And I want you to notice that what I'm doing now is making sure that I have a division on both sides, both feathers. The fibers are separated in this exact same spot. And that's what I was doing when I was digging around in there with the needle. And there's one more right there. There we go. That's better. And now what you do is you tie them on with the stem fibers and everything with snug but not tight wraps. That's because you're going to pull that out from under those thread wraps to make the wing the length that you want. Because what we want to end up with is a looped wonder wing, not a regular wonder wing, which has the stem tied to the hook shank. Because when you tie the stem to the hook shank, it looks gorgeous, but it'll spin your leader like crazy. You know what? I forgot to do something here. I wonder if I could stick that in.
What'd you forget?
I forgot my support. I wonder if I get by without the support.
Why don't you try it?
I'm going to try it without the support. The worst thing that'll happen is that I'll be embarrassed and it'll be a train wreck right here in front of all you guys. All right, let's just tighten this up. But I am so impressed with this church window feather. So if anybody else has been using those for wings, chime in. I would be very interested to hear what your experience has been with them. This ought to be interesting.
I think we're just going to have to take it real slow.
Yep, I would suspect. All right, then I'm going to do my stabilizing and gathering turns.
We'll do a couple more of those.
Yeah, I just want to keep it, though, a good stabilizing turns right there at the hook shank. Okay, so I think I'm going to, I normally, when I have the stabilizing monofilament in there, I cut these off. But I think I'm going to leave them there for to kind of help me, give me something to hang on to.
Yeah, arm hold there.
There you go. Yeah, yeah. Let's put some more dubbing on here. All right, there we go. Again, put the lid back on. And grab the dubbing and just dust it on the thread. Whoops. Oh, I don't have to put up with that when I use a monofilament stabilizer, but I'll just keep pulling those.
Well, this kind of
feathers.
shows you the difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's some of the things you got to put up with when you're using the feather itself as a stabilizer. All right. Let's see. I think I got enough hackle left here. Let's see. Yep, looks good enough. All right, we need a little bit more dubbing there. Making sure the thread ends up behind the post. All right. Now, the first one of you that laughs, I'm going to have you on next week doing it yourself. You got it? You guys are just too doggone easy here. No fun at all. Goodness. All right, here we go. Let's start wrapping this thing and see what happens. Let's see, that holds pretty good. Oop, easy there, buddy. Oops. There we go. All right, there's 4 turns. 5, 6, 7, 8. Trim off the waist. Tuck that end under. We'll do a half hitch. Whip finish. Trim that off.
Have you got your vise tipped up a little bit? Oh, there you go.
And I've got to
There.
go around this way now to get those wings straightened back out. Let's trim off the excess. And I won't have to trim off the support stub because it's not even there. I can use just the feather, so I guess that's possible. And there you got one.
I think that turned out pretty good.
Pretty reasonable. And again, I would drop a drop of glue right down in here. So it'll go down around the hackle and keep that right down there next to the body of the fly.
So Al, you mentioned about other uses for those church windows. I do a lot of Gary Stevens style streamers, and sometimes I'll use those as the cheek.
Oh,
Very good idea. So what do? Kind of trim them back a little bit so they're just a small part of them?
Yep, that's exactly right. Yep.
What a great idea. Oh, appreciate that. Anybody else have some things they use them for?
Mary
Yeah,
Orvis
this is
Marbury's got
Jerry.
some
I like
flies.
to use the tip, Sal.
Okay, so I had a couple of you talking.
Yeah.
Somebody said something about tips.
Yeah, I like to use the tips for wings.
Got it. Eric,
Yeah.
did you say something?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mary Orvis Marbury had some flies that they use. Actually, they use chucker and a couple of other strange birds, but the church window feathers work great for those.
Al,
Okay.
sometimes I'll use them on my Tenkara flies for mine, and you probably use the same thing for a soft hackle fly.
Well,
The other
it could be that I tied humpies and wolves for most of my life for a living, and so I just never did get to those church windows for much of anything except for a few spruce fly streamers and some other stuff like that. I mean, we used them on that, but Jesus,
Carry specials.
yeah, carry specials, but we used more the rump feathers on the carry special.
That's true, we did.
But sometimes we tie a special fly that was over in the Wenatchee area where you'd put on the first feather would be a rump feather wrapped, and then you'd top it with a shorter church window feather to make kind of a highlight there in the front, which that looks kind of nice. But the truth of the matter is, there was a lot more patterns for everything else in our tying bunch of materials than for the church window feathers or pheasant body feathers. Period. I can see where some of the gray body pheasants that we use for, as an example, the blue-eared pheasant for church, not church window, but for heron feathers. That those guys, they've got some body feathers that I think would just be dynamite. But I'm going to find out here as I get further into it. Now, is there a question out there? Did you get a question, Rich?
Al, I had something here. I think Jack Gartside used a bunch of parts of pheasant skins in a lot of his flies. His goal was to bring back the ringneck pheasant and make it more popular. And he's got an entire book full of flies that use those feathers, as I recall.
That's right. You're right. He surely did. He used a lot of the pheasant feathers, and a lot of his stuff where it was subsurface, mostly streamers, but a lot of other stuff. Some very unique things too. Quite a fellow.
Mike Keller likes the concept of that fly and the color and so on and so forth, but he wonders the stem is pretty thick. Would it be better to stick to the upper third of those church window feathers? So you have a finer stem out towards the tip of that feather.
The stem out towards the tip of the feather doesn't make any difference, Mike, as long as you've got a loop here. Because the flexibility of this is what keeps you from twisting your leader. It's when you have the stem going all the way down and tied to the hook shank. Now that's the way the original Wonder Wing was done, as there wasn't any loop here at all. It was tied right to the hook shank, and most of those would twist really bad. Okay, well, there is something that I wanted to talk about before we get into sharing and stuff like that tonight. But this book, I want you to notice the hackle on that dry fly. You notice how it's spread out around the wing and in the bottom, and the actual part of the feather that's in contact with the hook is pulled closer together. I have tried my whole life to wrap hackles that look like that. Of course, I know that's a drawing, and that's the way the artist did those back in that day. But do you think I can get them to come out looking like that?
I don't know what you mean.
See how it goes? What I'm talking about is the crisscross effect.
Huh.
And I mean, you can go all through this book and all the other books. Any of the books that had artists that were drawing them, either the same artist drew them all, or see, here we go on this. For the biggest part, they are.
So what causes that is on the hook, it's closer together, which causes it to go out like that.
Right, and I cannot figure out how to make that happen. I've tried crisscross wrapping and everything under the sun, and
Well, I'm a hackle person. Maybe I'll play with it.
here you go.
So
I've only been doing this 60 years and I haven't figured it out yet. So if any of you guys have got the answer, please, Eric, Austin, I'm looking straight at you now.
I'll bet you the artist was not a fly tire.
I was going to say, I'll bet you he
I
just
have
used
that
a
book.
ruler.
I
I
have
bet you
that
the artist
book.
just used a ruler and drew straight lines from the top to the bottom.
I've tried to do that for years.
Well, you know what you
I'm not
might
the only one then, huh, Eric? You know what? I even got to the point where I would take monofilament and burn a little ball on it, just like you saw it doing. And I put a kind of a reverse U on the underbelly of the darn thing so I could really make it crisscross. That worked fairly well, but you had these two big blobs of monofilament on the underside. And that was fine on a size 12, but Jesus, I wanted them on a size 18 and 20, and that didn't work at all.
so
Beautiful
Al,
look, though.
could you just put a thread ball that was torpedo shaped on, or a thread base that was torpedo shaped, and it would cause the hackle to do that?
Chuck, I will have you on here next week to show me how to do it. I have tried everything under the sun, and I just haven't had it happen yet. And I was hoping that the brilliant minds on here tonight would have some ideas.
Now, what about wrapping two feathers, shiny side to shiny side or convex side to convex side on each side of the post? So that you've got the natural bend of the feather.
Yeah.
Very good.
Oh, you want to be on next week?
Heck no. I'll experiment with it.
That should have fun. I don't know. I'll keep
Problem is
playing.
you've got wings. You've
with an
got
idea.
wings there. That's the issue. It's not a post.
Well, I'm talking about, so you would have basically wrap your feather shiny side to shiny side.
Yep.
Yeah, I get it.
Side
I
to
get
top
it.
side, and that way you've got a natural bend out on both top and bottom.
I hate to say anything, but that would be a good use to continue with David's thought for some cupped hackle.
Some what?
I didn't catch all of that, John. What kind of hackle?
Well, when the hackle is cupped, so it isn't directly parallel to the stem, to the racus. So I have some saddles that are, a few years ago they were heavily cupped that I got from Whiting, and trying to tie with those are kind of hard.
Are you having it? Gretchen's over there rapping right now, and is it working?
I did, but it didn't work.
Uh-oh.
Here's the thing. It's the perfection of that illustration that you're trying to imitate, not just getting a hackle to curve back or to curve forward. That's not the point.
I totally agree with you, Eric. I've been trying it for years and years and years, and knowing that I probably was never going to make it, but I keep asking, and maybe one of these days I'll find somebody that knows. But
I don't really like it, so I don't know why you'd want to do it.
well, I mean, not that many people like the parachute that I did tonight, but I just love it. So
I want my hackle to be.
So it does beg the question. I wonder if you could, you know what a hackle stacker is? You know, when you do a hackle stacker flies, you tie the thing like a parachute and then you pull it down over the top of the shank of the hook. Only maybe you do it.
The pull over type. Yeah, gotcha.
And
What if you tied it in a figure 8?
Boy, I don't know.
I don't know either. I've been thinking about that. I may play with that this week.
I think if you stripped all
Vince
the barbs off
Marinero-
of one side, you might have a chance.
Vince Marinero did that.
Yeah, it's right here. Somebody asked the question, didn't Vince Marinero tie like that? I seem to remember it in one of his books, or maybe one book.
Yeah, it's in his books. Try doing it. It's not easy. That is very, very difficult to get that look. Even doing it Vince's way.
If you're wrapping a hackle, unless you strip the barbs off of one side, they're not going to be 90 degrees from the hook shank. You're still going to have both sides of the hackle wrapping around, so you're going to have them somewhat in a V shape. But I think, like Eric was saying, I think you're trying to recreate something that was drawn, and it may not be possible with hackle to get exactly like that was drawn, but on any hackle that's wrapped, as long as you're leaving both sides of the hackle barbs on there, they are going to be at different angles as you're wrapping it, no matter how close you wrap the stem.
Let me spotlight that. Gretchen just quickly did one. She didn't even have her.
I didn't have my tying glasses on, so it's not perfect, but
She may have come close. May have something to work on here. Let's see.
I'm gonna have to spend some time.
You want
with
to
it.
go to the vice camera?
Yeah. It's kind of wild looking, but that was without my glasses. But I was starting to get some of it. But I'm gonna have to work on it a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to send you there. I'm gonna have to send you back to the drawing board.
Yeah, it is kind of.
Yeah.
But I almost think if I did this to it.
Yeah, Al, this is Jerry. The only way I've ever been able to get hackle to stand absolutely straight up and down was to either strip off one side, and you have to have a little layer of dubbing to pull that racus into, because then the feather has no choice but to stand up because it's going inside of something.
I can schedule you then next week to do that, right?
Well, you don't want it to stand straight up, though. You want it to stand at an angle.
Yeah. Well, if you can get what I'm getting at, though, is you can get the angle, but I think you'd have to strip all the fibers off of one side, because otherwise you're going to have the barbs on the other side causing issues.
Well, that's what was going on with the one I did. That's the wild stuff because, so if I did it with one, I might be able to do that. I'll mess with it next week. I've been needing to tie anyway.
You know that foam? Hey, Al, that foam, that Pro Wrap foam. Remember, it's soft and it grabs. Remember that pre-wrap foam, that Mueller pre-wrap that you showed a long time ago that they use out? It might, maybe, like Jerry was saying, it has some give and take to it, and will definitely hold the hackle in the form you want to have it go, because it's rubbery.
All I can tell you is I've had all these ideas. I've tried everything under the sun. I've been fiddling with it for 40 years plus. And so I'm passing the baton to all those who are younger and about better tires than I am.
That's me.
Jerry.
Yeah. Be careful.
I'm going to ask one simple question. Will it help me catch more fish?
Not a bit. I'm trying to catch fishermen. Though, when you're in the commercial tying business, you don't catch fish, you catch fishermen.
Yeah. I think I'm tired of this discussion now then.
No, don't catch. Oh, Evan Love, did you do any drawing tonight?
Well, here's your first one.
Oh, good.
And then here's the second one. But I'll tell you, I was disappointed when you cut the top off.
You had to get your eraser out, huh?
No, I never got that far. I was on that section.
Oh, boy, that would be kind of a crazy fly with wings like that.
I know. It was really pretty, though.
Evelyn, that's great. Thank you so much.
You're
Love
welcome.
that. Okay, it's that time in the program when you all share with us. And
oh, there. Okay, it came out a lot better than I thought. But it's just 3 glass beads tied with a dam at the back, so they don't slip around the hook and the wing. But it's a very effective water boatman pattern. That metallic green is kind of like the air that traps under their translucent wings when they hit the water.
Sideways.
oh yeah, there
we go.
looks good.
Are those brass? Or are they glass?
No, they're glass. They're glass.
What size
Nice.
millimeter?
Well, it's a really unique hook. I thought I may have actually tied it up, believe it or not, on a clink hammer hook to get a wide gape. I like wide gape hooks.
That's it for this week, folks. Thanks so much for joining us. See you next week.